This is the first time I've tried to write this down, the first time I've told anyone outside my family. I'm leaving out certain details like the time and location because I'm still scared of what might happen if this becomes public, I guess. It was the summer before 8th grade. 2 of my friends and I snuck out at midnight to walk around the neighborhood and visit some girls on the next block who were having a sleepover. As we turned a corner, we saw a huge black blimp-shaped object in the sky. It was like the Hindenburg, but bigger, and it seemed as if it was right there, not far away. It was completely silent and appeared to be the size of at least 4 to 5 football fields, no exaggeration, even though I was young. We stood there, mesmerized, repeatedly asking each other if we saw it, and we all agreed that we did, standing there, frozen in one place. It was like black polished gunmetal, with no lights, no sound, nothing. It just hovered there. And then, I don't know what happened, but time seemed to jump. The next thing I remember is that the craft, ship, government experiment, or whatever it was, had disappeared, and there was a tiny glowing white barbell thing in the sky, seemingly slowly falling to Earth with wisps of smoke coming off it. Then, 2 brand new black trucks with silver gearboxes on the back, similar to F-150S or S-10S but nicer, came speeding down the street, going about 70 in a residential 25 mph neighborhood. After that, I remember walking home to one of my friends' houses and going to bed. At that point, it was like 5 or 6 a.m. and the sun was coming up. We all promised to tell my dad in the morning because he worked for the city, but we never did. I don't know what happened later in life to one of my friends who was there, but the other was my best friend, and we sort of made an unspoken pact never to talk about it. I'm not sure how or why we did that. We all grew up, and I sort of lost touch with him too. We did reconnect over Facebook and such over the years, but it was like there was something between us that neither of us wanted to touch or talk about. Looking back on it now, there's no way we could have been the only ones to see it. It wasn't that late at night, and it was over a heavily populated suburb of a major city. The idea of this has always scared me more than any possible abduction scenario, that there were others, and we're all voluntarily suffering from a sort of collective amnesia. I've thought about hypnosis, but that scares me too, plus I'm not sure if I'd trust the results. I was just a kid then, and I'm not sure if I could trust the hypnotist. What I do know, again, is that there's no way it was just the 3 of us who saw it. We're talking about a huge thing hovering in the sky directly above hundreds of houses just after midnight on a summer weekend night. But there was nothing on the news, nothing in the paper, nothing on TV, and no one ever spoke about it again. The night was dark, the road stretching out before me like a ribbon of uncertainty. I was on my way home from Indiana University, a journey that should have taken 2 hours. It was 10 p.m. when I left Bloomington, the familiar sights of campus fading into the distance behind me. As I drove, lost in my thoughts, the clock ticked on. At 10:53 p.m. on a desolate rural road, a flicker of light caught my eye in the rearview mirror. My heart skipped a beat. Was I being pulled over? I quickly veered onto a quiet country road, hoping to address whatever issue lay ahead. But as I came to a stop, the lights vanished, leaving me alone in the darkness. Then the strangeness began. The radio, once a source of comfort, began to betray me. It cycled through stations, the volume rising and falling erratically. The car's lights joined in, flickering and dancing like phantoms in the night. It was 10:56 p.m., and confusion clouded my mind. Was my battery failing? Was there a glitch in the electrical system? Determined to find answers, I leaned over to inspect the battery, and that's the last thing I remember. When I awoke, I was surrounded by towering corn stalks, the cold night air biting at my skin. The stars above shone brightly, illuminating the field with an eerie glow. Panic seized me as I tried to make sense of my surroundings. Where was I? Why was I here? Questions raced through my mind, each one more terrifying than the last. In the distance, I saw the faint glow of headlights, and with trembling legs, I began to walk towards them. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown, the silence broken only by the rustling of the cornstalks in the wind. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I reached an intersection marked by signs reading 350N and 50W. My car lay half a mile away, a lonely sentinel on the roadside. The trek back to my car was a blur, my mind racing with fear and confusion. When I finally arrived, I found my car shrouded in darkness, its battery drained of life. I checked my phone, hoping for some explanation, only to find that it was 2:17 a.m. Over 3 hours had passed since I had turned onto the country road. Alone in the darkness, I called AAA for help, the sound of their arrival a welcome relief. As they worked to jumpstart my car, I sat in silence, my mind consumed by the events of the night. How had I ended up in a cornfield, miles from where I had last remembered? What unseen force had led me astray? To this day, I'm haunted by the memory of that night. The inexplicable nature of my ordeal defies logic, leaving me with more questions than answers. What happened to me on that lonely stretch of road? Was it a trick of the mind, a glitch in the fabric of reality? The answers elude me, buried deep within the shadows of that fateful night. I can't forget the strange event during a wildfire near Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah. As we rode in our fire trucks to the incident area, the sound of helicopters filled the air. 8 black military choppers flew in formation nearby, and we speculated they were conducting drills or using us for practice. Later, as we prepared to hike to the fire line, a thin column of smoke suddenly shot up about 200 feet into the sky, roughly a mile away. The impact was intense, and the noise was deafening. Despite the distance, we didn't think much of it, as we knew we were near a strike zone. About 5 minutes later, a bizarre aircraft flew past us at about 500 feet. It was flat black, rectangular, with fins and wells on the underside, moving slowly and silently, resembling a stealth glider. Following this, military personnel contacted us on our radio frequency, ordering an immediate evacuation. When our crew chief questioned their identity, the incident commander, responsible for managing the entire situation, confirmed the evacuation. We were redirected to a different fire about 100 miles to the south, which was already contained upon our arrival. I'm puzzled by the situation. If the army didn't want us to witness something, or if it was dangerous, why didn't they keep us away from the area from the start? It could have been a miscommunication or a sudden perilous event. I can't help but wonder if it was something extraterrestrial that the government and army wanted to conceal. To this day, the mystery of that strange craft remains unsolved. In Zay's basement, the glow of the TV screen filled the room as we played video games. It was a typical evening, with the sound of virtual gunfire and racing cars echoing around us. Eventually, we decided to take a break and headed to Zay's backyard to smoke a blunt he had rolled earlier. The night air was cool and we settled in, puffing away and chatting about random things, our laughter mingling with the smoke. About halfway through our smoke session, something strange happened. A huge, dark, rectangular object appeared in the sky, gliding silently and emitting a bizarre noise. It was flying unusually low, and I immediately knew it wasn't a plane or any other aircraft I had ever seen. We both stopped talking and just stared at it, transfixed. As the object passed over the house and disappeared from our view, we were filled with a mix of curiosity and fear. Without a word, we got up and hurried to the front of the house to see if we could catch another glimpse of it. To our surprise, a smaller craft detached from the larger one and veered off in a different direction, while the larger craft continued on its course until both were out of sight. We looked at each other in disbelief, our minds struggling to comprehend what we had just witnessed. "What the hell was that?" I finally managed to say, breaking the silence that had settled between us. Zay just shook his head, his expression mirroring my own confusion and bewilderment. The smoke session forgotten, we quickly went back inside, the basement now feeling strangely empty and quiet. We sat there for a long time, trying to make sense of what we had seen. We both knew that whatever it was unlike anything we had ever experienced before. In the days that followed, we tried to find an explanation for the strange sighting. We searched the internet for news or reports of similar sightings, but found nothing. We even considered the possibility of extraterrestrial visitors, although we quickly dismissed that idea as too far-fetched. Despite our efforts, we never did find out what the object was. It remained a mystery, a strange and unexplained event that we rarely spoke about. But it left a lasting impression on both of us, a reminder that sometimes the world is a much stranger place than we can ever imagine. As the years passed, life moved on, and our strange encounter faded into memory. But every now and then, when I look up at the night sky, I can't help but wonder if somewhere out there, that strange, dark object is still gliding silently through the darkness, its secrets known only to itself. One night a few years ago, my friend and I were driving home after dropping off his girlfriend. Instead of taking the usual route, he decided to take the long way home. As we drove along a deserted back road, I started to daydream and noticed a blinking red light in the distance. I casually wondered when a cell phone tower had been built so far out here. Suddenly, the light blinked again, much closer than before. My friend pointed it out and stopped the car. The light blinked once more, now directly in front and above us, flooding the car in a deep scarlet hue. I leaned forward to see into the light and felt a rush of negative emotions, as if I were naked under a giant microscope, every pore examined thoroughly. I looked away and asked my friend to drive, but he barely responded, seemingly in a similar state. Eventually, he snapped out of it and started driving again. As we continued, I noticed the red light hadn't faded, still illuminating the car's interior. Looking out the window, I saw the light following us for about 1-2 miles. It then veered off suddenly, descending to ground level in a patch of trees by the road. My friend stopped the car again, staring at it as if in a trance. He then declared he was going to get out and look for it. Feeling alarmed, I grabbed his arm and told him if he did, I'd leave him behind. We had to go right then. He seemed to snap out of it, hitting the gas so hard the tires spun. The light stayed put as we drove away, but the experience forever changed how I see the night sky.